So basically, this absence of an cytogenetic clone of the deletion 13q and deletion 5 and 7 and trisomy 8, this can be seen, and which may be a transient. They are present in up to 12% of patients with otherwise typical aplastic anemia diagnosis. So there can be abnormal cytogenetic clones in these patients as well. And monosomy 7 may indicate the likelihood of MDS in children, and in adults, monosomy 7 can also be seen in aplastic anemia. So in children, this monosomy 7 would be diagnostic of MDS related to and, monosomy 7 can indicate the likelihood of MDS in children. And in adults also, this indicates aplastic anemia. Abnormal cytogenetic clones may arise during the course of the disease, and the presence of a new cytogenetic may provide evidence of clonal evolution. So we have to look for all these cytogenetic abnormalities in 5, 7, 8, and 13. And we may be required cytogenetic analysis may be difficult because of the because of the insufficient metaphases. So we may need to do FISH analysis for these to look for the deletions and the trisomies. So another thing that they mentioned is that we can look for is that hypocellular MDS and AML would of course mean a differential, and then this would be ruled out because of the absence of blast. CD34 count will rule out any sort of AML, and hypocellular MDS can be ruled out mostly on the cytogenetic analysis, even of aspirate. So in children, if monosomy 7 is present, this would indicate mostly MDS. And in adults, the monosomy 7 would indicate aplastic anemia. Otherwise, trisomy 8 and deletion 13q, these abnormal cytogenetic clones may be present, and they may be present in a typical aplastic anemia diagnosis as well. So another thing that we can rule out is on refined is foci of lymphoma, and even myelofibrosis, because it would be ruled out because of reticulin, on the basis of reticulin staining, and also of course on the peripheral blood findings where there would be absence of teardrop poikilocytes and leukoerythroblastic changes on blood film. Then, so not only lymphomas, but also granulomas need to be ruled out, since mycobacterial infections and would cause granulomas and necrosis and increased reticulin formation in the granulomas also. So myelofibrosis, lymphomas, granulomas, and leukemias. Lymphoma, leukemia, and fibrosis and granulomas, they need to be ruled out. And then since there would be hemophagocytosis and eosinophilic staining representing um, interstitial edema, so we even need to have a sort of a differential for gelatinous transformation, which is characterized by a this is characterized by a so even because of interstitial edema, we need to look out for gelatinous transformation. This is characterized by amorphous extracellular material. That is mostly these are the proteoglycans and the fat atrophy. And there also there is marrow hypoplasia. So even with the gelatinous transformation, there would be marrow hypoplasia. But here in the typical aplastic anemia case, there is eosinophilic background staining with interstitial edema. And here they will be you will be able to identify gelatinous transformation is identified by the amorphous extracellular material present. So there's just slight eosinophilic staining, and there in case of gelatinous transformation, there will be serous edema, stromal edema. So the bone marrow features in case of anorexia nervosa, which leads to this gelatinous transformation. This is characterized by stromal edema and serous degeneration. So we need to actually have a look out for whether it's interstitial edema, which will present like eosinophilic staining, and stromal edema and serous degeneration would be characterized by amorphous extracellular material and fat atrophy. So there, the hypocellular marrow is not due to just the increased fat spaces, but there will be fat atrophy. So not only the marrow cells are decreased, but the fat cells are also decreased in that case. And another differential in children would be that if sometimes aplastic anemia can present with isolated thrombocytopenia, so we may even have to look out for ITP as a cause in there. But then in ITP, this usually shows normal or increased megakaryocytes. But occasionally reduced megakaryocytes can also be seen. So there we need to have a look. We need to like keep this mind, keep this also in mind. So thrombocytopenic disorders like ITP and amegakaryocytic thrombocytopenia, they also should be ruled out. So in ITP can also present, and we should rule out the causes for ITP and the features of ITP. And amegakaryocytic thrombocytopenia can later progress to aplastic anemia or MDS. So but here and we can rule this out mostly because of other features associated with amegakaryocytic thrombocytopenia, and also the CMPL mutation is characteristic of the congenital amegakaryocytic thrombocytopenia. Now, regarding the bone marrow findings, we had mentioned that any sort of erythropoiesis or granulopoiesis or megakaryocytosis would rule out MDS. Then leukemias and lymphomas can be ruled out because of the foci of lymphoma or any sort of blast on peripheral smear. And then fibrosis and granuloma and gelatinous transformation, we had ruled this out. Even bone marrow necrosis can be present in certain cases, and this also needs to be ruled out based, which can present in not only neoplastic processes involving the marrow. If there is a sort of neoplastic inflammation, neoplastic infiltration of the marrow, there may be necrosis even of the bone marrow. But it can also present in sickle cell disease also. But here the microscopy would be different because the bone marrow aspirate would show cells with indistinct margins and smudged basophilic nuclei surrounded by acidophilic material. So the necrosis would be evident in that case. Just as we mentioned that in gelatinous transformation, there would be fat atrophy and there's amorphous extracellular material. So in necrosis also, there will be these smudged basophilic nuclei, cells with indistinct margin because they have released their contents and their enzymes into the surroundings. So cells basically ghosts, cells with indistinct ghost cells may be seen with indistinct margins, and there would be acidophilic material surrounding the cells, and the nuclei would be sort of also smudged basophilic nuclei are also seen along with acidophilic material. And the Refined biopsy may also show loss of marrow architecture with the indistinct cellular margins and background infiltrate. So when we see hypocellular marrow, we have to first even rule out whether it is this hypocellularity is due to necrosis or granulomas, or there is some sort of gelatinous transformation of the marrow in itself, or there is fibrosis of the marrow. So fibrosis, gelatinous transformation, granulomas, and necrosis. All these should be ruled out if apart from the diagnosis of leukemia, lymphoma, and MDS. So we mostly come across we mostly include the differential for leukemia, lymphoma, and MDS also, but we should also have look out for these other findings for fibrosis, granuloma, gelatinous transformation, and bone marrow necrosis, which can be there in patients with sickle cell disease and also with extensive metastatic involvement of the bone marrow. So this was all regarding the findings that can be there with in case of the bone marrow findings for the adult aplastic anemia and also for inherited aplastic anemia. So we'll also then go into this these pediatric causes for if you go into the pediatric causes for aplastic anemia, they had also mentioned this brief, which is, I think most of it is included, that the chromosomal, we should do the DEB test for Fanconi anemia, and this chromosomal breakage analysis and the diapoxybutane stress test for Fanconi anemia, and the telomere length. They have mentioned it that there is a peripheral leukocyte telomere length is done, but we can do it by flow cytometry. or by and fish, that is flow fish, to identify the patients with the disc keratosis congenita. Although it is noteworthy that not all disc keratosis congenita patients will have very short telomeres. So in the adults, they had mentioned that very low sort of uh, um, the very low telomere length would also be present in cases of acquired causes of aplastic anemia also. So we need to because of residual decreased residual marrow, so we need to um, I think there was some reference here of telomere length. So this short telomeres may also occur in acquired aplastic anemia with reduced stem cell reserve. So when there's reduced stem cell reserve, even then the aplastic anemia, they would be reduced this telomere length. But if it is less than the first percentile of if it is far below the first percentile for age, then it would be diagnostic. It would basically suggest more of the diagnosis of disc keratosis congenita. And then the lymphocyte subset testing to identify the presence of B cell lymphopenia, which is done for GATA2 genetic, and if the B cell lymphopenia or monocytopenia is present, then we can we can have a suspicion of the Monomax syndrome or the Berger syndrome. So in Berger syndrome, there would be mostly peripheral lymphedema, and on examination there would be peripheral lymphedema, and on blood film as per on CBC finding there would be lymphopenia or monocytopenia. And then on genetic testing you would then come across this diagnosis of CARTA2 mutation. And the next generation sequencing panel, so we have basically we have to look out for Fanconi's anemia, disc keratosis congenita, and this GATA2 mutation with the Berger syndrome. The most common of the congenital causes are these. Then in next generation sequencing, we can do for in the children and young patients with idiopathic aplastic anemia. And next generation bone marrow failure panels are currently unable to provide results in a timely manner. That is, if turnaround time typically about 2 to 4 hours. So just NGS sequencing has a turnaround time of 2 to 4 months, and nevertheless, a positive result could subsequently affect the genetic counseling and cancer surveillance. The samples should be sent where possible at diagnosis. So, whenever the aplastic anemia in a young patient, usually less than 30 years of age, they mentioned that even if less than 50 years of age, all come under a Fanconi anemia workup and for inherited bone marrow failure syndromes. So most likely we'll consider them a DEB test or with telomere length by flow site flow fish, and then also the GATA2 mutation can be suspected in cases with um, lymphedema and lymphopenia and monocytopenia, and then next generation sequencing samples should be sent, although the turnaround time is typically long. It is 2 to 4 months, and the most of the patients, they need urgent care. But even then, this would affect the genetic counseling and cancer surveillance, so these samples should be sent. Um, So I think we have gone through all of the causes for bone marrow, the actually the differential based on the bone marrow, the findings in aspirate that it should be easily obtainable and tangential biopsy should be avoided, and that the trails and fragments are to be seen for hypocellularity and although and for any dysplasia. And then in the refine, we will document the hypocellularity, and which may be patchy in certain cases, and then also CD61 to exclude dysplastic megakaryocytes, and CD34 for to look for blast count, and then the reticulin stain. And also they mentioned that iron stain may also be done to rule out the ring sideroblasts on the aspirate. Then the normal clones that we need to look out for are the ones they mentioned here are just those for the PNH clones, and then we can rule out MDS clones even by cytogenetics that interface cytogenetics and cytofish. And apart from PNH, there is also this mention in front of the large granulocytic large granular lymphocyte TLGL clone that needs to be ruled out based on TCR gene rearrangements or STAT3 mutations. So three diagnoses, basically I think PNH, MDS, and TLGL for adults, and for younger patients, we have Fanconi anemia, dyskeratosis congenita, and the Berger syndrome, which needs to be ruled out by GATA2 mutations, and there will be lymphopenia and monocytopenia. The next generation, the sequencing, they mentioned that the turnaround time is uh, very long, but it should be sent because there will be required for cancer surveillance and genetic counseling in the follow-up. So then also in the bone marrow biopsy, we need to look for not only the leukemia, lymphoma, and dysplasias, and leukemia, lymphoma, and the dysplasias, but also for the fibrosis, granulomas, and gelatinous transformation, and also to rule out bone marrow necrosis. So this is basically the investigations that we would carry out, and then the investigations required, we would, I think, gone onto the table 1 and table 2. And also in the inherited aplastic anemia, the two syndromes, frequently the Fanconi anemia and dyskeratosis congenita, they are to be ruled out. And the Fanconi anemia genes are important in DNA repair, the dyskeratosis genes in telomere maintenance, and they are based on, and so for Fanconi anemia, we do the chromosomal breakage analysis test, and for dyskeratosis congenita, we'll do the chromosomal breakage analysis test, which will detect the impaired DNA repair processes. And then in dyskeratosis congenital, we'll look for the telomere length, which will be shortened because of impaired telomere maintenance. So in Fanconi anemia, we have uh, like this DNA repair is impaired, and in dyskeratosis congenita, the telomere maintenance is impaired. So these tests, the chromosome breakage analysis test and the telomere length test, they look into these, and this is done using flow cytometric FISH, or multiplex PCR, but can be useful in the detection. And the genetic tests can also be done, and it is possible only in specialized centers. So in addition, there are other genetic syndromes that are somewhat associated with aplastic anemia and cytopenia. So this includes the Schwarzman-Diamond syndrome, and the congenital amegacuriocytic thrombocytopenia that will show the CMPL mutation, and the GATA2 deficiency, the Berger syndrome. And so all these congenital causes may also be ruled out. So we have the main three of Fanconi anemia, dyskeratosis congenita, but these Schwarzman-Diamond, congenital amegacuriocytic thrombocytopenia, with the CDS has the mutation in the BDS gene, and CAMP has the mutation in CMPL, and in the GATA2 and Berger syndrome, this is GATA2 deficiency. And some cases of inherited anemia still first present in adulthood, and it is important to recognize this. And so even patients as less when about 30s to 40s may also be worked up. Where there are insufficient characteristic features, the diagnosis may be where there are sufficient characteristic features, the diagnosis may be straightforward, but sometimes it's not so the case. And the presentation is only with the aplastic anemia and with minimal non-hematological abnormalities. So there we need to and it should be considered and tested for bone marrow failure syndromes should be taken if in cases of inherited causes. An investigation for inherited forms of aplastic anemia should be reappraised in patients initially classified as idiopathic aplastic anemia and who failed to respond to anti-thymocyte globulin. So even patients like in younger age group patients, all this workup for inherited bone marrow failure syndrome should be done. But in older age group patients, when the baseline investigations for the adult aplastic anemia has been done, and they have been classified as idiopathic aplastic anemia and then treated with anti-thymocyte globulin and then failed to respond to those therapies, so then they should be they can be investigated along the inherited forms of aplastic anemia, and a reappraisal of those patients may be done, and to look for any congenital cause that is not responding to these immunosuppressive or immunomodulating therapies. So now the comprehensive assessment should be performed, including the family history. So basically, we had the drug history, the family history, and the family history for any congenital causes. That would be also a leading time point in the history. So drug history, family history, and then the occupational history even. And then in the radiological examination, we need to go for the abdomen, the chest X-ray, CT, pulmonary function test, and the echocardiography and abdominal ultrasound, and the evaluation for other extra hematopoietic abnormalities such as cirrhosis, pulmonary fibrosis, or renal anomalies. And the presence of these will support a diagnosis of constitutional rather than idiopathic bone marrow fibrosis. So I think we have gone into much of the the investigations, and here we before we go into the management part, I think we'll cover the management part tomorrow. But we'll probably just go a bit into the pathogenesis of aplastic anemia as well, if we have some time left. I think about 10 minutes or so. So we could cover that in this time, since the pathogenesis are also relevant. Now the pathogenesis, we've done most of the that we need to work up these cases based on and drug history and family history and occupational history. So basically, all these um, genetic and also then the genetic causes. So they could be like in most cases of these aplastic anemia, the hematopoietic defect is both qualitative and quantitative. And so there could be like not only there's a reduced hematopoietic stem cell compartment, but the stem cell compartment is also defective. So there would be not only the cells that are involved are the primitive long-term culture initiating cells and more mature hematopoietic progenitors. So it is mostly the colony forming units and um, the colony forming units, the um, the 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 precursor cells for the cell lineages, that is the megakaryocyte erythroid precursors and the granulocyte erythrocyte megakaryocyte and monocyte GEM and the MEP and the megakaryocyte, all these precursor cells, they are mostly those involved. In addition to the reduced number and impaired repopulating ability of the bone marrow CD34 cells, these cells are more apoptotic. So not only are they reduced in number, but but there is increased apoptosis of these cells, and then the normal CD34 cells. So not only are the cells that are reduced are those typically of the culture initiating and the primitive progenitor cells in the bone marrow, and the defect is mostly in the qualitative defect is that the apoptosis is more pronounced and more than in normal CD34 cells. And so these cells, what they have is the defect is usually in the telomers, that they have shortened telomeres as measured by in peripheral blood leukocyte analysis. And the bone marrow stromal cell microenvironment is also does not function in a way, because normally most patients, if they assess by in vitro systems, this will show that the frequency of the colony forming unit fibroblasts, they are normal in aplastic anemia, and mesenchymal stem cells, they show normal. So the microenvironment is mostly normal in these patients. The colony forming unit fibroblast and the they are normal, and the mesenchymal stem cells also show normal phenotype. So the microenvironment is normal. It is the stem cells that which are defined by the uh, on immunohistochemistry, they have the problem. So the microenvironment is normal, but the hematopoietic stem cell compartment, that is defective, and the defect is usually in the case that maybe shortened telomeres, and no, or it may be because of decreased sort of the decreased response to these hematopoietic growth factors. So and then and now so this is there's basically the hematopoietic defect, and then the immune mediated nature of the acquired aplastic anemia. In case of acquired aplastic anemia, um, the term that they mostly used is that there is not there is cellular immunity and humoral immunity that is that is impaired. So the immune suppression of the marrow multipotent cells, the CD34 cells occurs, and there is progressive erosion of the marrow cell telomerase with direct toxicity of the marrow stem cells. And then there is defective stromal microenvironment. So the stromal microenvironment is the stromal microenvironment does not show much of a defect. This the defect is more in the marrow stem cells, which in which the case some factors may even cause direct toxicity, whereas some factors may cause sort of immune suppression of these marrow cells. So, and there may be impaired production of these multi-lineage stem cells because of decreased response to the growth factors, although the growth factor production is normal in these cases. So, the term that they most used for most of these immune responses is that there are autoreactive cytotoxic T cells. These are mostly CD38 positive cells, and these CD8 positive secondary T cells have this cytotoxic mediator response, and this is mostly the Th1 response, which is there because of drugs, viruses, or toxins. They cause induction of the new antigens that provoke a secondary T cell mediated attack of the hematopoietic stem cells. So and then there is this interplay of cytokines with interferon gamma. The interferon gamma will cause is where the interferon gamma is stimulated, and TNF alpha and interleukin 2. These interferon gamma, TNF alpha, and interleukin 2, they are increased to cause this T cell proliferation. That is the autoreactive cytotoxic T cells. They are mostly increased, and interferon gamma is increased along with T-bet upregulation. So there would be then there's I think a diagram of this also given in Hofbrand. So it's for you what is the immune mediated aplastic anemia is mostly maybe viral drug induced or toxins. What they cause is they cause immune damage to the stem cells, resulting in a pro-inflammatory response. The CD4 positive most important component comprises CD4 positive T cells, which is with expansion of the Th1 clonal and Th17 regulatory cells. So the Th1 response is there, and the Th17 regulatory response is there, and there is reduced and dysfunctional Tregs. This Tregs are reduced. This leads to oligoclonal expansion of the cytotoxic CD8 positive T cells. So the CD8 positive T cells are the ones that increase, and the CD4 cells they just invoke the cytotoxic response, but they are decreased in these cases. So they could be CD4 positive, and Th1 and CD17 and CD8 positive T cells are the ones which causes the cytotoxic response. The CD4 positive, they cause the immune response of the cellular and humoral type. And then these autoreactive oligoclonal CD8 positive cells, they will cause the interferon gamma, TNF alpha, and interleukin 2 to be upregulated, and there will be intracellular interferon gamma levels in T cells correlate with the response to immunosuppressive therapy. And then there is also increased fast expression on this bone marrow CD34 cells that causes increased apoptosis. So apoptosis is increased, oligoclonal autoreactive TCD8 positive T cells are increased, and there is increased inflammatory response with interferon gamma, TNF alpha, and interleukin 2. So this is all, and the regulatory cells, they are impaired. The CD4 positive, 25 positive, FOXP3 positive T regulatory cells, they are impaired, and there is and the clonally restricted TH1 are expanded. So there is increased TH1 response and decreased T regulatory response. And apoptosis is increased not only due to the cytotoxic element of the CD8 positive dead cells, but also due to increased nitric oxide synthase levels, which are increased due to the upregulation of interferon gamma and this IRF pathway. So there will be increased production of there will be increased apoptosis. So autoreactive cells